welcome to another edition of Booty and Barbeau. He's Josh Booty. I'm Rachel Barbeau, and we are so excited. We have Clint with us, former Arkansas QB, played with the Dallas Cowboys as well, had a nice little NFL career, arena football career. We were just discussing that, and also an analyst on the SEC Network. Clint, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me. I tell everybody I had a sideline pass for several Cowboy games for about 3 years, but it paid well.
Josh and I were talking about the game last week between Arkansas and Auburn, that no better place to start than that game. And no love lost between those two coaches. Malzahn, Bielema, they don't like each other at all. And Bielema was gloating after that game. I guess you should after that many overtimes. Just your thoughts on that game, that dogfight between Arkansas and Auburn.
Well, there's definitely no love lost, but it's funny how the dynamics of the coaches' interactions changes when it's two struggling programs, right? They're not worried about bantering back and forth in the media before the game. They're focused really solely on their football team, and that was exactly what it was. I mean, you had two struggling football teams battle it out all the way through 4 overtimes. Auburn right now is there's just no explosive players on that offense, and when everything they do is based off of tempo, which is based off of the chunk plays, the 7, 8, 9-yard plays on first down, and then they jump into that up tempo. When you don't have an electric player on offense at all, it's tough for those guys to execute up front and really get into what they want to do. And then Arkansas is just it was a ground and pound game for them, and they were in their comfort zone for 4 quarters really, and obviously 4 overtimes.
Tell me this. Passes. Josh, may I ask one more question to him before you get going?
Sure.
You know, there was a former Auburn wide receiver that just blasted on our side on Gridiron Now, just blasted the Auburn receivers in that first half, and particularly the first quarter. I have to agree with him. You guys, both quarterbacks, and Josh, I'm interested in your take too. He talked about, there would have been up downs, there would have been drills, there would have been running to the stadium lights came on if there had been that amount of drop passes. So you kind of look at, you spread the blame in a lot of places, but I haven't seen anything like that like I saw in that first quarter for Auburn.
Yeah, they definitely were struggling, and the thing is there were some drops. You classify them as drops, no doubt about it. But what I saw was a lot of difficult throws that the kid was making. They were accurate, but they were difficult throws and difficult catches. And I think for Arkansas, that's the key moving forward is don't give them anything easy. And they were forcing the down the field throws, which in turn, Josh, those are difficult throws for anybody. And they're difficult catches, and the receivers were having to attempt the catch in traffic, and they didn't make the plays. No excuses. They were drops, no doubt about it. But they were difficult plays and routes to execute. So good job by Arkansas by forcing them into several difficult situations. But you're right. I mean, they got your D1 big-time college football program, slated to be in the college football playoffs this year preseason. You've got to have some guys that can help a young quarterback out, or he's going to struggle all year long.
Arkansas and Tennessee are kind of mirror images as far as the way their season's gone. I know Tennessee's lost some close matchups. Arkansas has really got a good ball club. They're going to be in every game that they play in. They've ended up on the short side of the stick a few times, but you're right. Malzahn, it seems like to me too, Rach. Malzahn, it seems like things aren't coming as easy to them this year. Usually he gets those easy first down throws, and he gets into those quarterbacks get in the rhythm, and they hadn't been able to do that. And I wonder in a game like that, Clint, because you've played in some big time, long overtime games. How do you keep your focus? Because I've never played in more than like a 2 overtime game. How do you keep your focus in a 4, 5, 6 type overtime game? I mean, that's hard on a quarterback to keep going back out there and having to deliver, every time out and try to stay in a ball game or win a game.
Well, I hadn't actually played in many of them. That was Matt Jones in the 7 and 6 overtimes. I think they had 2 of the longest college football games in history. But
yep.
I think it goes back, Josh, to the, as coach speak as it is, one play at a time. That's the kind of player that I wasn't talented enough to think 2 or 3 plays ahead or think I could fit a ball in somewhere that I couldn't. I literally had to take it one play at a time, A, B, C, D, check it down, because that was the kind of player that I was. So I can relate to these guys having to stay in the moment, one play at a time, just execute this one play. And that's obviously magnified in an overtime game. Brandon Allen, I mean, you can't say enough. If you're inside the state of Arkansas, there's people been calling for his job since the Toledo game. And the kid's the third-rated passer in the SEC. Apparently, Arkansas fans don't get it, right? But this was a big game for him, because he stepped up 2 or 3 times on 4th down, 2 times on 2-point conversions, and answered the bell, and they ended up winning. So it was definitely a big step forward for the program, but even a bigger step forward for Brandon Allen, he seems to get all the credit in the world outside the state. But as soon as you get back into Arkansas, everybody wants to see his little brother play.
I got to tell you, I just looked, and I can't take Josh seriously in this wig. I realized that he is wearing a big afro wig, and I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? It is Halloween, but
it is Halloween. I'm the white Dr. J today.
That's a good guy, dude.
You got to get you one of these, Clint. You got to get you one, Bubba.
I was Jay-Z for one Halloween, and it was awesome.
If both you guys were wearing that, I couldn't keep my focus in doing an interview and try to talk SEC football.
Nobody would take us serious.
Yeah,
I bet we're talking SEC football. I want to know more about his days with the Cowboys. I mean, what Dallas Cowboy cheerleader did he date? Because I dated one or two. I want to make sure it wasn't the same one or two.
Hey, there was one named Bobby that was absolutely beautiful. I was a big fan of her, no question. We couldn't date him, though, so keep it quiet, will you?
Off the rails. I love this. This is where this podcast has gone off the rails with 2 former SEC quarterbacks, but that's okay. And listen, that happens, and we love it around here at Booty and Barbeau. But Clint, I want to ask you, Josh and I talk a lot about SEC quarterbacks. And first, before we kind of leave that game between Arkansas and Auburn, we were talking about Gus Malzahn. It didn't go his way. He didn't get the quarterback that he wanted this year. Jeremy Johnson fell flat. He's obviously still got some things to do. I thought it was a really neat gesture that he puts him in there, and he trusts him a lot right there on the goal line, lets him score a touchdown. But more than that, for Sean White, we talked about the receivers that really needed to step up. A lot of poise, a lot of moxie for that young quarterback at Auburn, and some promise and maybe some excitement in the future for Gus Malzahn with that signal caller.
I disagree. I just don't think that he's the answer. I think if I'm understanding your question right, I just think that they've got to find somebody that touches the ball every snap, that's a dynamic runner, that can make explosive plays.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for his system, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm a little bit put back by the quarterback situation at Auburn. They can put me and Josh back in there if they want to. Nobody's going to be successful until they run the football, until they get back into being a threat vertically and horizontally in that running game. It doesn't matter who they put back. So who's better? The kid that threw 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, or the kid that's thrown 0 touchdowns and 1 interception?
Yeah.
I mean, who's better? Who's better for the job? You tell me. So we've made a lot about that quarterback situation, but ultimately, I've been saying from the jump, it's about the running game. They don't have anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the difference. And I, like going back to Malzahn and the past teams and even championships he's won and SEC championships, he had that element of run. And Cam Newton, when he was at Auburn, did such a wonderful job. And we thought Jeremy Johnson was going to be that type of player. He had that type of hype. Is he going to be the second coming of Cam Newton? And they did not move the football and kind of got him out of rhythm. And the fan base media got behind, Jeremy Johnson in a negative way. And it seemed like they had to pull that trigger, but they're not doing much offensively that we've seen them do. And I hate that for Malzahn.
Yeah, the thing that they have to have, that they've always had, is that Antonio McCaleb. You remember him back in the day. They always had that guy that was a threat sideline to sideline. They'd either run that speed sweep or fake the speed sweep, and everything worked off of that being a threat. It opened up the lanes inside for Michael Dyer and Cam Newton. It opened up the lanes for Nick Marshall and those guys, Cameron Artis-Payne and all their 3 name backs. They always have a back with three different names. So, but it just opened up those lanes, and now they're closed down. It's just not, and they're not very good on defense either. That's been the big thing, that the offense has been so bad that we've overlooked the new defensive coordinator, high dollar defensive coordinator that struggled. So they're just not very good on either side of the football. While it was a big win for Arkansas, unfortunately, that's them and Vanderbilt are at the bottom of the conference right now.
You're right about that. Let's talk about some other SEC quarterbacks. We got a lot of love going on this podcast. I do. Josh just supports my love for him. I know him off the field, think of him as a wonderful human being that he is, but you talk about on the field a tough, gritty leader, and that's Dak Prescott down at Mississippi State.
I'm a huge fan. I was a big fan of Mississippi State football, watching them last year. They were fun to watch, and everything they did. You never know who was going to have the ball and who was going to make the play, and it was fun football to watch. This year, they found out early against LSU that they were not going to be able to run the ball between the tackles the way that they had before. And Dak's he's averaging about half as many rushes this year as he did last year. And Josh, you've seen this at the high school level and the college level so many times. These quarterbacks have to adjust and really change their identity, and they struggle, whether it's all of a sudden they've got to get into the center and run the ball more, or they've got to get in the gun and toss it around a little bit more. They've got to change their identity, and they struggle. Dak Prescott, after the first half against LSU, when the world found out they were not going to be able to run the football between the tackles with him or anybody else, he made the adjustment, got in the gun, caught the football, and became a guy that just got it out of his hand and got it to good receivers. And now you fast forward 8 games in, I don't know if they played 7 or 8, but you fast forward, and this kid is in my opinion, he's a legitimate pro-style passer right now from the pocket. So hats off to him. I'm a big fan of his. I think moving forward, the NFL prospects, and as he moves forward towards the draft, are going to realize he's a lot better fit for the NFL game than they initially thought at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think what's happened to him this year is his progression and the way he's progressed, just throwing the football. Last year he didn't have to carry the team on his shoulder, and him having to do that this year, and the NFL seeing, hey, you know what, this guy knows what to do with the football in the pocket, and he can get out of the pocket and make plays if he has to, but he's not a run first threat. He actually wants to go through his progressions. He's an accurate passer. We mentioned in the last podcast, we felt like he was Tebow, but a lot better passer. He's that kind of strong kid. He's confident in what he does. He's patient back there, and even with his draws and runs that he does, run, it seems like he lets the play develop, and he gets what he needs to do, and he gets down and takes care of himself, and he's become such a great offensive threat, and I hate that he doesn't have the team that he had last year, because if he was playing the way he was this year with the team they had last year, they would be a top 3 or 4 team in the country.
He's in total control when I watch him play. And that's a beautiful thing as a quarterback. When you watch a guy, or as a quarterback, when you feel you are you're total control of every play, whether it's pass, run, of the clock, of everything on the field, you're in total control of, then you can win. You can play at a high level and win a lot of football games. When I watch him play, he's never out of control. He is in total control of everything that's going on, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. I really believe that moving forward, he's going to be the quarterback to follow moving towards the NFL draft. I know we're not through with his last season yet, but I just think he's going to be a guy that scouts are going to love. You talk to people that have talked to Mullen and guys that are close to that program, and they're comparing him to Tebow, like you said. Outside of, like, Tebow was just an ultra competitive guy, like more than anybody that I've ever met. And other than that competitiveness, they say Dak Prescott is a step above leadership and knowledge of the game, throwing the football, and those types of things. And that's a mouthful when you're talking about Tebow. He was a special guy now.
Clint, you talk about total control. I want to ask you about a program that just kind of came up out of nowhere under new leadership, and that's Jim McElwain and the Florida Gators. There's power, and talk to me, and Josh and I have talked about this from a player's perspective when you buy in. When you are sold hook, line, and sinker on what a coach is telling you, on his install, on the way he treats you, on the way he goes about business, the way he runs his program, and then you've got the minister of mayhem, Jeff Collins, on the other side of the ball in a loaded defense. It feels like I didn't see the Florida Gators coming this year. I thought a shaky offensive line, who's going to be the quarterback, and yet they performed the way they have and have the edge going down into the world's largest cocktail party.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be my claim to fame. Is when I first started with the SEC Network, I had Florida slated as my Cinderella, and really it was based off of I watched McElwain at Colorado State, and if you watch his film, I'm a big film guy. I don't want to regurgitate what everybody else on ESPN says. I want to watch film every game somebody's played and give you my opinion of them. So I watched a bunch of Colorado State film, and if you watch their film, their quarterback was never under duress. I mean, if he was getting blitzed and the corners are soft, he was getting the ball out of his hands. If the corners were pressed, he was throwing up, he was throwing a fade. They were just always in control of what they were doing, which tells me that the play calling is next level. As fans, we don't realize that, and Josh will tell you this, there's very few guys, coaches, do you watch a football game and you go, that play caller is making a huge difference. He could play with us three and get a receiver open. And McElwain's one of those guys. He's going to scheme up 2 or 3 or 4 plays that are going to be just throwing the oceans for the quarterback. Just get it there. You don't have to make a perfect throw. Just get it there, and it's going to be a 40 or 50-yard touchdown. He gives them probably a 10-point advantage going into every football game. So after watching that Colorado State film, of course, I had the same question. The offensive lineman, when he took the job, there were 6 offensive linemen in Florida uniforms. That's a nightmare in this conference, right? By the end of spring, he had 15 guys. But in his play calling, he's misdirected, and he's done some bootlegs and used some things early to slow defenses down. And the guy he's the hottest play caller in the country right now, if you ask me.
I like you said 10-point advantage. I mean, I was down there when they played LSU several weeks ago, and it looked like even with Treon Harris, who hadn't had a lot of playing time, who hadn't been the starter, and Will Greer had taken him up to that point, and all that news came down the week of the game that Treon would be in a world of hurt in Death Valley because he was facing an LSU defense and a very good defense in that, and he like you said, McElwain prepared him enough in that week that he was not shell-shocked, and he played great football, and he was able to get outside the pocket and do some fun things. But Treon could actually step up in the pocket and connected on a lot of passes that hurt LSU, and it kept them in that ball game when I thought LSU was going to just run roughshod over them.
Yeah, that was my take on him for the development in this bye week. I mean, he's had a chance to. McElwain's gonna call those plays. He's gonna dial those plays up. They're gonna rep them all week long, and they're gonna put points on the board. The next step for Treon in his development is the core base offense. The things that you rep continuously throughout the year, but you may not have repped them 2 or 3 times during practice this week. He's got to get better at getting through his reads and checking the football down and not getting hung up and then depending on his feet to get him out of trouble. There were times in the LSU game where that, Powell's running across there on that shallow cross, wide open, and that's your check down, and he would scramble. He's got to get better at getting that guy the football underneath and those kind of things. But when he does, and you couple that with his scheming and his play calling, it's going to be tough to stop, man.
Yeah, I know. I like the way they're playing. I know Georgia's got, their back is against the wall. Mark Richter's been a lot of noise, people breathing down his neck. This is a big game for Mark Richt, but I do like what McElwain's doing. I do like that Treon Harris has got another week or so in the system running those plays in practice. I just think Florida's got a real good chance to. I know the line is tight. I think it's 2.5, but I think Florida's just got the better team right now with Chubb out. And with Lambert not playing great football at quarterback the last few weeks, you'd have to think Florida would take this ball game.
Yeah, Josh, Georgia lost their identity when they lost Chubb. And not necessarily him. It was all this because they were really effective, obviously against lesser talent, but they were really effective with Chubb in the backfield, and then Sony Michel moving around, doing the shifts and the motions, and then getting him 6 or 7 touches in the passing game. Because you get him in space, and then all of a sudden he can take the distance. He's that electric guy. And now when Chubb goes down, all of a sudden they move Sony Michel to the featured back, and now you lose what I was calling the X factor all year long. That's the guy that Arkansas doesn't have. That's the guy that Tennessee doesn't have. That's the guy that now Georgia doesn't have him because they're parking behind behind the quarterback. So I think you could see Georgia turn this thing around if they let Keith Marshall and Brendan Douglas do all the power running between the tackles and get Sony Michel back in that 6, 7, 8, 9 carry range, but get him his touches at receiver too. And he's fresh in the fourth quarter. Right now, they're going to the fourth quarter and their best player's dead.
Mm-hmm. Clint, let's pick your brain. A couple of last questions here on this podcast. Let's pick your brain. A monster matchup. Josh and I will be attending the LSU-Bama game coming up in a couple of weeks here. And people are calling it the showdown, the Super Bowl of the SEC. You look at LSU, and the only talk about them obviously was Fournette in the preseason, but they weren't one of the favorites. Everybody was talking about Auburn, overhyped. They were talking about Alabama. They were talking about Arkansas even as the Cinderella. And I think Les Miles likes it that way. I've heard comments that he said, Leonard Fournette, we know what he's done. I think they averaged like 309 yards per game. The guy makes the defense better. And they weren't talked about for a really long time, and I think Les Miles uses that to his advantage.
He definitely uses it to his advantage. I think Les Miles probably enjoys any kind of take, whether he's getting talked about or not. He just enjoys getting behind the camera or in front of the camera. Les Miles was actually the tight ends coach my years with the Cowboys, so I actually know him pretty well, and he's a unique character.
Yes,
he's always fun to be. A great guy, though. I mean, just great. I know why he's successful. It's because he is a genuine, sincere person, and that goes a long way in recruiting, especially with young 18 to 22-year-olds. So, but hey, I mean, I'm on the LSU bandwagon. I knew going in that it was going to be all about Brandon Harris developing, and could he become the guy that took him to the next level? I mean, he's the guy that can get you 8 or 9 wins in this offense, but is he the guy that can take you to the next level? And what I've seen so far, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was 94.7 QBR against Florida, which was the second best all year long versus the top 10 defense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then he followed that up with 280 yards against in the rain against Western Kentucky on a night where Fournette had his worst output, which his worst output was 150 yards. But still, the offense puts up 500 in the rain. And so he's really mature and he's really developing. And the one thing I don't think we knew, Josh, was that this offensive line, man, is too deep, as good as anybody in the country. I mean, what's most surprising to me with Fournette is I believe he's like averaging 120 a game before contact. This kid could lead the country in rushing if he was playing flag football. I mean, it makes no sense. So. Brandon Harris' development is big, and the weapons around him is absolutely. I mean, the receivers are great. They lost the tight end, that's going to hurt, but I still think it's dangerous. And I like him next week against Alabama. I typically would not make that prediction this early, but there's nothing going to. They're both on a bye week. There's nothing going to change it. I like LSU to beat Bama at Bama next week.
I got one question for you, Clint. Now. Let's talk about Coker for a second, the quarterback at Alabama. What do you really think that guy can lead them all the way through the playoffs and everything? I know the guy is a decent quarterback, but do you think he's that high level of a quarterback that he can do the things that they need to do, because they don't have a ton of outside weapons at wide receiver? The freshman's coming along, but they don't have those. I mean, they don't have just a ton of weapons. They're not using them. Do you think Coker can do it with that Henry and Drake combo in the backfield? Can he really get going offensively and really do what he needs to do to win a national championship?
Absolutely not. I don't trust him. I think he's done good with the situation with Drake's been injured, and like you said, some young quarterbacks. Some young receivers that are coming along, but they're just not there yet. I just. Being a former quarterback, some of the mistakes I saw in the first half of the season, and then I saw it against Arkansas, it reared its head again. I can't, again, it has nothing to do with talent. It just, it's a basic post with a dig route underneath it, and you're high-low and one safety, and he picks the wrong guy. I mean, it's very simple reads.
Yeah.
And then, you couple that, Josh, with this. I'm not sold on the Kiffin-Saban relationship. Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, gets away from what Saban's all about, and it causes – they're leading the league in penalties, Josh. Alabama is leading the league in penalties right now.
No reason.
Any year before, Saban there'd be smoke coming out of his ears because of that. But it's all they try to go that up-tempo, and they get pre-snap penalties. They're trying to go with all these crazy formations, so they get alignment penalties. I'm not sold, man, that's Alabama football. And for whatever reason, I can't buy in. I can't believe that's how they're going to win national championships is with that up-tempo stuff on offense and then putting his defense on the field more snaps than necessary. I just can't buy. I watched the A&M Alabama game. Alabama's got the football under 5 minutes. They got up early in that game. Remember, that was the game where they had all the pick sixes. So they're up 14, and they get the ball with 5 minutes left in the first half. And instead of running the clock out, they give A&M 2 possessions inside 5 minutes. And that's not Nick Saban football. And so I'm just having a hard time believing that that's going to win a national championship, that combination.
Well, yeah. You've got an LSU game, and you mentioned Brandon Harris. The guy hasn't turned the ball over. I mean, you talk about ball security. You talk about a guy who's steady back there and the leader of your ball club in terms of your offense out there. You got him versus an Alabama team that, Clint, I don't know. I hear your LSU pick. I hear Josh's pick. But it feels like this Alabama team has unfinished business from the playoffs last year. And whether that rests on Coker and whether it's the relationship between Kiffin and Saban, I think you hit the nail on the head. I've covered that program intimately. I think there is something there in the water. But you got an Alabama team it feels like has unfinished business versus an LSU team that everything's clicking right now.
Well, look, I mean, there's no doubt that Alabama's defense is nasty. I think coming into it, we thought, well, the secondary struggled. They struggled last year. They've had a lot of guys leave for the draft, and they're plugging some new guys in, moving Eddie Jackson from corner to safety. Was a question mark. But we look up now, and they're leading the conference in sacks. They're leading the conference in interceptions. They're turning those interceptions into points. There is no doubt they're nasty. But look, I watched Florida's defense a lot too. And before that LSU game, I picked Florida in that LSU game because I thought their defense was as good as anybody in the country. With that said, Fournette goes out there and puts 180 on them.
Yep.
That's telling me that offensive line is not blinking one bit. Fournette's not blinking one bit. And if they can rush for 150 and 180 against Florida, I like the chances against Alabama. It's gonna be a big boy contest, heavyweight contest. But you put up 180 on that Florida defense, they're as good as anybody in the country up front. You made a statement right there. I can't get off of LSU right now.
But my last question, Clint, is everybody's talking about LSU and Bama, but Ole Miss, they're sitting in a good seat too. Ole Miss and Florida sit in 2 good seats to get to this SEC championship game.
And Ole
Miss, Ole Miss is my pick. LSU's got to go to Ole Miss too. I don't see if Ole Miss stays healthy, I don't see anybody beating them the rest of the way. I know they lost the game to Memphis. Throw all that out. Ole Miss, Chad Kelly. That team, I just think that they're a team that could win the whole dang thing.
Well, they control their own destiny, but I'm not buying, man. I mean, I'm not buying Chad Kelly to the level that they're talking about him. Every time I see somebody or watch a game, I hear somebody commentating about, this big NFL arm. I mean, last time I checked, that big NFL arm coming off the pitcher's mound or crow hopping from center field, that ain't gonna get it. They ain't gonna cut it, and so. For me, I think they're good. There's no doubt about it, man. They're good, but they're not in that caliber. I don't believe they struggle on third down. They can't run the football offensively. And defensively, they couldn't get off the field against Memphis. Memphis comes out, and I know it was Memphis, and I know that happens. And trust me, I know it. Arkansas lost to Toledo, so I get it. But you really dissect that Memphis game, man. Memphis, they go down at the end of the first half and score. They get the ball coming out. They go on a 10-play drive, and it ends in points. Ole Miss gets it back close. Memphis gets the ball and goes on a 16-play drive to milk the clock at the end of the football game and ends in points. That Landshark defense did not do their job against Memphis, and got back on track last week against A&M. I get it, but I just can't buy, man. I know what you're saying. It wouldn't surprise me if they make a run. But I can't love it.
I think from a talent standpoint, one deep, they're as good as LSU and Bama, and for some reason, I really think Chad Kelly is better than Brandon Harris and Coker.
Woo!
I don't know if that's going to
Josh.
play out like that, but I really think they got the best quarterback, and so I'd like to argue this a little bit more, but I think Chad Kelly gets rid of the ball. He's got better feet. Brandon Harris is a good QB. They're not, but Les Miles in that offense and Ken Cameron ain't going to release him.
Chad has no help though, Josh. That's the thing is those other quarterbacks you mentioned can turn
They've
around.
got running games. They've got running games.
Hand, you know, I mean, you turn around and hand it to a grown man. Chad Kelly can't do that. I mean,
I understand. LSU and Bama has a run games, but you got to think about this too. Is Ole Miss already beat Alabama, and LSU has to go to Ole Miss. So all Ole Miss has to do is win the rest of their SEC matchups and beat LSU at home.
All Ole Miss has to do is not beat themselves. That's for sure. Looks like we lost Clint Sterner there, but want to say thanks to Clint Sterner. He's Josh Booty. I'm Rachel Barbeau. It's been Booty and Barbeau. We'll see you soon.